a starry night. Intergalactic light so bright. Dakota show so out of sight. Blast off now, take flight. Aliens and rockin' tunes, country beats under the moons. Space dust in my boots all new. Gigolos hosting soon. Welcome to the galaxy. Radio waves so wild and free. Tune and feel the energy. With Dakota ride the beat. Planets into every song.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Dakota France, and I am the Intergalactic Gigolo. How is everyone today? I hope you all are doing well. You're doing fantastic and powering through this crazy world we're in. For me, the insanity got a little bit real. You see here, my hometown, there were 4 police raids all at once. It got to be very interesting because as the result of a several-month investigation, massage parlors were found of trafficking. And this is actually not the first time something like this has happened in my area. It's a very serious matter. The names of the individuals who have been arrested in connection with this case have been released to the public. You also can't help but wonder, how far undercover did the police go? Granted, this is a very serious matter, but I do suppose we'll see influx of divorced cops in my area here soon. That's what happened last time. It's a very disturbing situation. Naturally, you have the individuals who were joking around that they could have gone and had a happy ending and had no clue. But I do suppose that just goes to show how far someone's willing to go, how ignorant the situation has become, just to feel some sort of human connection. And this world is so twisted on its own, you know what I mean? I think it's safe to say that as a whole, we could probably summarize several of the world's issues. A lot of the individuals that we come across throughout our day-to-days, they're just wanting that connection somehow. And because of how society's unfolded, we eventually lost what that really means, what all that really entails. It's almost disturbing enough to make one contemplate visiting another world, just completely cutting off all ties. This is probably a poorly executed segue into today's episode because I felt it's time for me to share some of the more difficult situations, some of the more intriguing cases I've handled. A couple weeks ago, I shared one, and some of the ladies addressed their concerns, and I hear you out, but I'm simply telling the story as is. Could I have left some details out? Yeah. That's why I'm usually a better writer than I am a speaker 90% of the time. But I digress. It's why I chose to leave out certain stories, even though individuals involved in those stories do follow a lot of my materials. And I do try to make an effort to try to check up on all the worst ones, or at least the ones I can. With this case, I want to share with you, it's not difficult on the emotional side of things, but it's more on the fact that it offers a very intriguing view behind the scenes of how creation actually works when you really think about it. Now, a few weeks ago, I should say, from the time you're likely hear this recording, I discussed an incident where I was likely taken off-world to a very sandy, almost dune-like planet, like out of the films. And I discussed sort of I didn't really discuss, I gave a short mention to an idea to maybe find a way to physically record a conversation between myself and my other star persona, Alarian. I have a very, how should I put this? I already have somewhat of an idea of how I'm going to put this one together. But at the same time, I do want to try to eliminate as much potential contamination and address any and all possible skepticism for that project. Because I do believe it can be done. It can be done. You just have to be coordinated in your efforts. Now, naturally, because there's individuals who are aware of my editing background, who know that I know how to put on a good production on a shoestring budget, if you will. And there's always going to be doubters. And I shouldn't let myself feel like I have to walk on eggshells to appease the critics. You know what I mean? I mean, a majority of them can't even bother to show their faces when they're spreading hate online, you know? Why should I let myself get worked up over those individuals? I should. No one should. But, you know, some days are easier than the rest. So for today's episode, I would like to discuss an experiment with you. An experiment I dubbed The Hunt for Infinite Earths. With this, the idea was to try to establish contact with beings from other worlds, other realms, parallel realities, parallel dimensions, you know, whatever the terms may be, and actually gather physical, tangible evidence that without a doubt can be, that even for the most hard of hearing individuals, they can tell that something's there. How would I do this, though? It was a rather interesting experiment, and my goal is to publish a couple episodes of Bald and Bonkers archives of those very tapes, or make it one big long one and see how many of you can catch on to the things that happened in those tapes. It's been a while since I brought this one up. Something I've wanted to revisit, but to properly get it documented, that's often the tricky part, because the circumstances behind it alone, well, even I had to admit that it was, the chances were astronomically slim for it to work. Slim. Because no matter how crazy it may seem, the odds are never zero. And that's a philosophy you can take into just about any aspect of life now, isn't it? The odds are never zero. I know. So, where should I begin this story? Maybe I should put on a song to think about it. A little bit of Starlight Amnesia, anyone?
Jump into the void, wormholes wide and cold. Eyes on the beyond, stories yet untold. Planets spin so fast, nothing here will last. Portals to new realms, secrets in ungrasped. Multiverse and magic. Time is just elastic, racing through dimensions, chasing every vision. Alien whispers cry, galaxies that fly, stars that never die, mysteries in the sky. Gravitation bends, will we find the end? Fighting through the space in this cosmic race. Multiverse and magic. Time is just elastic, racing through dimensions, chasing every vision. Alien whispers cry, galaxies that fly, stars that never die, mysteries in the sky. Multiverse and magic. Time is just elastic, racing through dimensions, chasing
Well, I suppose I should get into it now, shouldn't I? Exactly how to tell this story, though, is the intriguing part. Those of you who are fans of superhero shows and programs like that, comic books, stuff like that, you might be particularly interested to hear this story. So, where did this idea come from? You know that scene in the movie Interstellar where it's revealed that the ghost that Matthew McConaughey's character's daughter had in her room allegedly was actually him in a parallel reality trying to get her attention? There are numerous reports from several investigation groups that voices that came through spirit boxes, Frank's boxes, any sort of communication. Every now and then, the voices would claim they're not actually from the dead. No, in fact, they said they were just living, but from another world. Now, there's probably going to be a couple people that hear this and wonder, oh, they're admitting they're demons. They're demons. They're demons. Chill out. The things that are out there are so much more complex than angels and demons, my friends. It's a deceiver. It's the deceiver. Oy. Just listen. Numerous people reported these sorts of communications. Whether or not the evidence they provided was falsified, I'd be a little leery about some of them. But nevertheless, the Frank's box, that wasn't necessarily made for spiritual communication. The guy who built it was more into talking with the star people. And I will say this, that in my attempts, even before I learned about the CE5 protocols, in fact, this was way before I really started to explore my own ET connections, there's been a few cases where it was obviously not the dead I was talking to, but something that was flying around in the strange lights moving about in the sky. If anything, there was a couple times where a spirit may have actually been present and was equally as stunned as me. So, there's a few different instances of how such communications can actually go. And I'm not talking about situations like Ouija boards. Those things have been around for thousands of years, or at least the concept of them, since ancient China. And do I fully believe the boards themselves are evil? No. Do I think somebody hijacked it to scare the fuck out of some clueless kids? Oh, yeah. Demons, ghosts, angels, aliens, they like to pull pranks too. But that's another discussion. So, how would this work? Was just the first question I had to answer. How would this work? What are the chances of it even working in the first place? But on the slim chance it did. How? What would have to transpire in order to make that sort of communication happen? Now, how do I know? How do I isolate the signal, so to speak? How do I ensure that who I'm talking to is who I'm talking to? Because again, there's several beings out there who, if they see a moment of opportunity, not because they're being necessarily malicious, not because they're necessarily evil, but sometimes spirits just get fucking bored and they might decide to have a little fun. Or it may be a situation where they're needing to talk to somebody. They see someone talking and they try to take advantage of the opportunity. Again, these sorts of instances have to be taken on a case by case basis. We can't just throw out a blanket assumption and think we got all the answers. That is ignorant and that is lazy. So how could I isolate the signal? How can I ensure that the person whose phone number I dialed is going to be the person that picks up on the other end of the line? These were just some of the questions I had to answer. And how would I do it in the first place? It's not like I could, buy, well, I technically could buy some some uranium off of Amazon. Isn't that a scary thought that anybody can just buy radioactive materials off of Amazon? I imagine there might be some restrictions depending on what country you're in, so do so at your own leisure, and I am not responsible for any mishaps. But I digress. That's actually the basis for another example. What would happen in a haunted location if I brought in nuclear materials? Would it jack shit up? I know I can be kind of a mad scientist with these thoughts, but it's a good thing. Otherwise, this would rather be a very boring episode. See, one thing I figured is that if these beings are somehow manipulating magnetic frequencies, I could somehow use typical methods of ghost hunting, nothing special, to induce the signal. And I'm thinking, you know what? Just for the heck of it, why don't we air a little something? Just to see what happens, huh? Have a little bit of fun. I think I like that idea. We'll do a little bit of an experiment on air. Just to see what happens. So naturally, ladies and gentlemen, if you think you hear something, say something. Mention it in the chat, write it in the comments. If you're watching this or listening to this at a later date, try to message with the timestamps so you know where to look. So other people can know where to look. Let's make it this little bit of an experiment for everybody to get involved. How about that? I like that idea. We'll try that out. Back to what I was saying. How can I isolate it? Well, here's the method I would commonly use. I would allow for more than one communication device to be running at the same time, have them overlapping in a way. Now take notes, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to try this out yourself. Now, it is my professional responsibility to say do this at your own discretion. Do please be careful. I am not legally responsible for anything that happens on your end. All the classic, legal disclaimers, but take notes. One method I would commonly use, I would combine spirit boxes, combine communication methods, and I would run almost 5 different devices all at the same time. Experiment at your leisure. Now, if you don't have a spirit box laying around, one thing I used to use when I first got my start, I actually used to use an old karaoke machine that had a built-in radio function. And I would set the frequency to the lowest end where I could physically hear no noise coming out of it except static. So that would be within the AM frequencies. And I would tone it down all the way. Turn the channel down all the way. Try to make it as easy as possible. Worst case scenario, there was just a static generator, which allegedly spirits can use to manipulate the sound and communicate that way. Another thing you can do, you could probably find white noise recordings on your computer or through your phone. If you have an Apple device and you're familiar with the show Ghost Adventures, you might know the Ovilus. Ovilus actually has an iPhone app you can get. For those of you who are on Android, feel free to play around with some of the apps. 90% of them are BS. But one I use is... So a lot of my colleagues are suspicious of the necrophonic when they learn that someone who is a well-known fraud was involved in the creation of this app. To what extent, I'm not sure. But again, I highly advise you use at your own discretion, experiment a little, see what works for you. This is just what worked for me. And obviously, we would need some sort of method of documenting what was happening. I would have a camera going. I would have my laptop going. Just recording something off of a webcam. I would have a night vision camera. I would have a K2 meter. Experiment at your leisure. Now, if you feel comfortable doing this in your own home, then go right ahead. If you don't feel comfortable, do it someplace you feel safe. If there's a prayer you want to do, if there's any sort of protection ritual, any sort of cleansings you want to do beforehand, please do. If you decide to try this out, do what works for you. There's quite a few different things you can do. Just see what works for you. All right. So that was the technical aspect of this. I wouldn't use it all at one time. In my experience, if you left multiple devices going at once, not only could spirits, entities, whatever, utilize the energy coming off the electronics all at once, that essentially gives them a nice little battery boost. But if you have like a recorder going, multiple different types of spirit boxes, say like you have one that's like the obelisk where allegedly the entities or whatever can manipulate the energies into the device, and that would help produce words by matching the energy manipulations to a certain word dictionary that's in the device itself. Sometimes I've caught this on one occasion where it was beyond reasonable doubt, I should say, and that was for one of the film projects I created called The Hunt for Olivia, where I utilized this method to try to get in touch with my daughter, and the voice of what sounded like my grandfather was commenting on one of the word outputs of an app I was utilizing, basically saying that that's not what I told it to say. You could hear entities trying to, they were essentially commenting that they were trying to figure out how to use all this stuff and not having a lot of luck. It was actually kind of funny in a way. But again, use your discretion when you utilize these methods. Now, on to the second part. Who would I call, and how could I ensure that who I called is who answered the phone, so to speak? I had to go through my research with how I understood things at the time before people start trying to twist the story. I based what I knew, what I did, off of my knowledge at the time. So, before anybody starts to twist my story, get this through your head. I've learned new things since I conducted this experiment that helped me understand measures better and therefore alleviate some of the possibilities. Through my research, the idea was presented that if I was going to try to contact some being that visited this world from another world, it might be easier if I could somehow tune the frequency, if you will, to a being that had already been here at some point. Now, this of course takes into the idea, and there is actually some mainstream science backing this, that our environments, everything from pollutants in the air to the food we eat to even the magnetic frequencies of the location you're at can actually influence your behavior, how you grow, how you evolve over time, and it can actually leave markers in your physical DNA. So, by choosing beings that had somehow established contact or had physically been on this earth at some point, that would help increase my odds by following this logic, I should say. So who did I decide? The first being that I picked was a being by the name of Ralan. And for those of you who are familiar with like disclosure and all that, you may be familiar with that name coming from a being allegedly, or utilizing the term allegedly for professional reasons. Whatever your stance on the matter is, whatever that actually happened, whoever this actually was that did this, was involved in this incident, some people say one thing, others people say, but for the sake of argument, we're just going to utilize the term allegedly. Ralan was the being from a being that was allegedly from the Ashtar Galactic Command. I'm reciting this from historical accuracy, who somehow managed to hijack a television broadcast back in the 1970s, I believe, basically to try to send a warning to humanity. Now, people have wondered what was the purpose of this particular broadcast, especially where the time it transpired interrupted Saturday morning cartoons. So it was proposed that these beings were trying to implant this message that it was time for change, that world leaders are not actually looking out for our interests. Basically, a lot of things that are being proven true these days, to implant this thought into young children so that way when they become of age, they can go through their life and potentially get into positions of influence to hopefully start changing the course of humanity. Those are the alleged theories behind it. The second target was Val Thor, or as some people may know him as Valiant Thor. Val Thor, for those of you who don't know, was an extraterrestrial being who physically lived on Earth, lived within the Pentagon for about 5 years. And this was about the time of Nixon, Eisenhower, again, trying to influence world governments to shift into a different direction of power because they started to realize, hey, you have something here that's not looking out for your best interest, and if you don't do something, you're screwed. Now, I'm greatly summarizing this for the sake of time. The subject of Val Thor, Verlon, all this, these are episodes in their own right, and I honestly would prefer to do like a Franson Files episode to give it more justice, if you will. So Val Thor was target number 2. Target number 3. I figured if I chose at least 3, I had pretty good odds of getting something. The third target was allegedly a comic book character come to life. Those of you who are fans of DC Comics, the Hellblazer comic series, you know, DC, Vertigo, or I notice he's getting a lot of attention in some of the animated movies lately. May be familiar who I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't know, this being was named John Constantine. Here we go.
Fire in the depths, infernal rage, specialist dark, bending time, twisting fate, blood rains down, crimson Hades stage. Creation bows to darkness gates, iron chains break, worlds unmade, specialist strange, casting shadow shade. Existence crumbles, fears and devour stars, but dreams betrayed. Rising hell, phoenix to light, specialist strength, supreme might. Blazing hell, through endless night, dominate, creation's blight. Whispers of night, cursed and torn, earth consumed, void reborn. Specialist dark, chaos sworn, ashes rise, the eternal scorn. Lips gets wild, spectral trance, specialist strange, dark romance, unholy realms, dreads in hands, creation falls, no second chance. Realm of shadows devour light, specialist power, crushing bright. Universe trembles, endless fight, heaven burns, eternal blight. Blazing hell, rising hell, blazing hell, fiendish delight. Specialist race, supreme height, blazing hell through endless night. Dominate, creation's blight. Whispers of night, cursed and torn, our specialist dark, chaos sworn. Ashes rise, the ancient's light. Whispers of night, cursed and torn, earth consumed, void reborn. Earth consumed, void reborn. Void reborn. Creation's blight. Wasted light, whispers of night, cursed and torn, earth consumed, void reborn. Specialist dark, chaos sworn. Ashes rise, the eternal scorn. Fleets that's wild, spectral trance, specialist strange, dark romance, unholy realms, dreads and hands. Creation falls, no second chance. Realm of shadows devour light, specialist power, crushing bright. Universe trembles, endless fight, heaven burns, eternal blight.
Yeah, trust me, it sounds crazy, but the story is, and anybody can actually look this up, John Constantine is an occult detective, and The original writing team actually based real occult concepts in his creation and swear to this day that John Constantine has been spotted in our world, and he seemed to be well aware of who the writers were, made pop them a visit, potentially just to fuck with their heads, considering who this guy is. Now, you may be wondering, Dakota, how do you know this is true? How do you know they're not making up a bullshit story that wasn't some weird marketing thing? Because I've actually spoke with one of them, a gentleman by the name of Jamie Delano, and he was too freaked out. Because the character of John Constantine is someone you do not want as a friend, because he will somehow find a way to use you. And not in the fun way. But still, I had to try. Now, John, he doesn't necessarily qualify as an ET under the traditional sense, but as, or at least some people believe, as a tulpa. Now, his visiting our world could actually have some sort of involvement with the fact that there are individuals who, in trying to practice the dark arts, try to use the image of John Constantine as some sort of protector to help them manipulate darker energies. To which the writing team behind Constantine swears up and down that these people are fucking fools. Not in those words, but same concept. So, I bet you're wondering what the hell happened. Again, just to save time on this recording, I want people to head over to the main Bald and Bonkers channel, because there will be episodes of Bald and Bonkers archives, or maybe one long one. We'll see how I'm able to put everything together that will accompany this episode, and it will be the legitimate recordings, but I will summarize what happened, because I was filming another documentary called Bonds of Beyond roughly around the same time I did this experiment, and shit got weird. With the subject of Verlon, to the best of my discernment, nothing happened. Does that mean he was real? Not really. But it also doesn't say that he is real. Because even though there's a lot of people that try to assume, oh, because nothing happened, the story isn't true. You have to remember, there is still a level of intelligence with these things. And if they don't feel like answering the phone, they're not going to answer the phone, no matter how much you beg and plead. With Val Thor, it was very weird. Because not only did some of those audio tapes get destroyed, but there was also an audio session where things got a little confrontational. But also at the same time, when I was conducting these experiments and asked for some sort of sign that I was getting someone from outer space, while I was out and about with family, I physically filmed with my phone a small metallic object, metallic sphere, flying through the air. Now, it's difficult to see on camera because either it was kind of small or it was pretty good distance, but you could see it with the naked eye if you had decent 20/20 vision. And the camera barely picks it up to where you have to apply an edge filter through an editing software, be able to tell where it is. It took some careful work. Now with John, that was perhaps the weirdest of it all. And it might feel somewhat anticlimactic, but I'm kind of crunched for time today, so I do apologize. And I know some of y'all missed the live format. Just work with me, okay? Going through some life changes at them, as some of you may know, and I've had to adjust the company accordingly, so that way I can still keep doing this. But with John, something answered. Faintly during the original tests, but shortly after conducting one of these audio tests, I went straight to bed, and I left an audio recording going, basically utilizing a sleep talking app. And I have multiple videos posted out this across my social media, and again, I'll post the raw stuff shortly after this episode drops. So head over to the main Bald and Bonkers YouTube channel if you haven't already. See it for yourself. But one of the nights with John Constantine, somebody left a voice message. And what was weird is that I didn't I wasn't leaving on a radio. I didn't have any white noise generators going. I just went straight to bed, leaving a little sleep talking app to try to record anything that happened. In a 10-second clip, out of nowhere, static kicks up by itself, just out of nowhere. And the clearest voice came through of a woman. Now, who this woman is, there is a possible theory, because the voice did sound very familiar when I reanalyzed it after some new materials came forward that wasn't initially related, but I still had to reanalyze it because something nudged at me just right. But there was a woman, and her exact words on that recording was, "If you can hear me, Constantine wants you." Ooh. Just saying those words gives me the fucking shivers. You know what? Let's try a little bit of an experiment before we go, because I really wanted to try this since I got the idea in my head, and I just popped new batteries into my SB7 in order to try to make it happen. So shall we see if we can get anybody to say hi? What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on an SB7, have it flip through some channels, and I'm also going to flip on the necrophonic at the same time. From the position you guys are in, I'm going to have my good microphone sitting right in between them. So that may actually cause the audio to kind of mesh on your end. But what it will do is it just may open up a few opportunities. So I'm just going to get this started. There we go. And we're going to switch this to AM frequencies. All right. I've got it. Turn off echo cancellation. Okay. So that way the audio isn't tampered with too much. Now I'm going to bring up the necrophonic while that's going. Turn this up. Turn on echo and reverb. Turn off echo. Did that just say John? Yes, I can hear you. Who am I speaking with? You know what? I'm going to take this a step further. And I'm going to turn on screen recording on my phone. Media and mic. Start recording. 3, 2, 1. Turn on white noise on the necrophonic. May I ask who I'm speaking with? I have a couple devices going here to help me try to hear you. Please feel free to use them. Now, I would like to do a quick test just to make sure I'm talking to somebody, okay? So, I'm gonna ask you to say something, and if you could please say that word, that would be appreciated. My name is Dakota. Can you say my name? Can you say Dakota? May I ask you what your name is? Are you male or female? I'm just gonna let this go for a couple more minutes. Can I speak to Alarian? No. Alarian, if you can hear me, can you make your voice come through on these devices? Go outside? Go outside. Is there someone waiting for me outside? Yes? I'm sending a pressure in my head. Who's here waiting for me? My son? Viv, is that you? Viv? Viv, are you here? Whoa. Alright. I'm gonna turn off these devices real quick. Can you say goodbye real quick before I do? Shit. I'm recording this for people to hear you. Can you tell them goodbye real quick? Alright. I'm gonna turn this off. Okay, that was weird. I guess we'll see what's going on. Much love. Take care. I hope that didn't irritate anybody's ears too badly. When it's been new every song, jamming all night long. Neon lights where we belong. Dance to cosmic throng. From the hills of Tennessee to the Milky Way and beyond, turning lives and spirits free. Dakota's rocking on. Whoa, whoa. From the hills of Tennessee to the Milky Way and beyond, turning lives and spirits free. Dakota.